Have you noticed that whenever the medical experts say, the science says, it ends up justifying the left's most insane demands? Now, I can remember when the science told us that Trump was overreacting by blocking travel from China, and I can remember when the science told us not to wear masks. I can also remember when the science said that reopening states early would mean skyrocketing deaths. The hospitals will be overloaded. Well, of course, the science invoked by the so-called experts was wrong every step of the way. But that hasn't stopped the media from blaring alarmist warnings. Well, now the science has deemed it okay, essentially, actually, to pack together outdoors in large crowds to protest in the name of liberal political causes. In fact, it may be the most effective COVID treatment ever.
It was outdoors, where the virus is much more likely to be dissipated into the air. On the other hand, we had people who were exposed to tear gas and smoke, where coughing was more prevalent, which is something that does aerosolize the virus. We also had people who were arrested, held in vehicles, such as buses, for hours before they were processed, and then put in jails overnight, all which would increase transmission. But as of this morning, we don't yet have any convincing evidence this has been a big problem.
Okay. That's what we meant by herd immunity, Mr. Osterholm? Well, meanwhile, that same science considers it unacceptably dangerous to attend large indoor gatherings. Now, I'm sure it's just a coincidence that these super spreader events happen to exactly match the campaign rally that Trump had planned over the weekend.
If I was giving advice to the administration on this, I would say that they should withhold large political rallies right now.
It's a bad idea for states that are already seeing increases in cases to then have these this perfect storm set up.
Being at a stadium with potentially 1 million people, as the campaign is saying, has bought tickets, is a setup for a super spreader event.
And I'm sure it's just a sheer luck that the hyperventilation over a second wave of COVID cases conveniently tracks precisely where Trump is set to travel.
Thousands will gather Saturday night in Tulsa to listen to the most famous non-mask wearer in the country, President Donald Trump. But COVID is here in Tulsa. It is transmitting very efficiently. Confirmed cases in the county just climbed 30%. in a week, blamed by the health department on large indoor gatherings.
Remember, it's hospitalizations and ICU beds that really count, but that's all right. Just move the goalposts. Well, Democrats wish that the president would just put off campaigning indefinitely, obviously, or ideally until after the election of Joe Biden, who, all things considered, they'd just prefer to stay in his basement until Inauguration Day. Meanwhile, Anthony Fauci, a man obviously suffering from media withdrawals, he resurfaced over the weekend in what can only be described as a one-man effort to depress us all. Now that we're slowly starting to get our lives back, ever so slowly, he told a British newspaper, "I would hope that we could get back to some degree of normality within a year or so, but I don't think it's this winter or fall." The medical deep state strikes again. Well, the bottom line for all of us is that the president and his campaign should simply not react to any of this alarmist COVID drivel from here on out. None of these people, sadly, including Dr. Fauci, can be really taken all that seriously anymore, given what we've seen, because science, just like journalism and entertainment, has become obscenely politicized. Now, why did none of these people, wailing about the health hazards of Trump's future rallies, voice any real sustained concern about the shoulder-to-shoulder protesters screaming at the top of their lungs, some not wearing masks, some taking them on and off? They're carrying BLM, Antifa, or nasty anti-Trump signs. No worries. Why aren't they decrying the risque picnic that took place in Central Park over the weekend? Now, my friend's son couldn't get married in New Orleans. My high school buddy couldn't visit her dying brother. But angry agitators felt free to conduct a rave outside D.C. Mayor Bowser's home yesterday. At least there was some social distancing going on there. Well, considering how much mayhem Mayor Bowser has fomented in D.C., it's poetic justice. I'll support the protesters in that one. Now, in New York, Governor Cuomo reported just yesterday 40 COVID deaths. That's a 96% decrease from the peak. That's good news. But despite all that amazing progress, Governor Cuomo is still threatening businesses and localities because they're all having too much fun and making a little money. Watch.
I am warning today, in a nice way, consequences of your actions. We have 25,000 complaints statewide. I'm not going to turn a blind eye to them.
Not long after he issued that threat, hundreds of thousands of protesters filled the streets of Brooklyn for a Black Trans Lives Matter rally. Now, are they going to face consequences for not social distancing or not wearing masks or not wearing them properly or not wearing them long enough? Or you get the point. Well, not from Mayor Bill de Blasio, they won't. He's ordered the city's vast army of COVID contact tracers not to ask people if they've been protesting. Well, that's not totally true. De Blasio did punish Brooklyn's Orthodox Jewish community for the heinous crime of going to the park. For their sins, de Blasio sent city workers to weld shut a park gate in the Jewish community of Borough Park in Brooklyn today. Now, the only thing that should be shut down at this point are the Democrats' political fundraising operations, given what's going on here. They need to be punished at the ballot box for how badly they botched this from day one. And at the same time, President Trump must convey a calm and confident message. I don't know, something akin to keep calm and wash your hands, don't sneeze on people. Now it's back to the work for the rest of us. We've got to get our country back. He must also not allow states to unfairly punish their own residents with these prolonged freeze-outs in education and business. I mean, at some point, these shutdowns are tantamount to a state taking of property without due compensation. You see the constitutional argument I'm making. And that's a virus our American system will tolerate no longer. And that's the angle.